This is Windows 11 running on a smartphone. I mean, that Windows 11. Not a virtual machine, not a remote desktop. This is running natively on a smartphone. Touchscreens works fine, really smooth, no lags at all. You can see the specs of the phone in Task Manager, which suggests a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 chip powering this unit. So obviously I'm not lying to you. Actually, this is a OnePlus 6T model running Windows 11. And you can even run some decent AAA titles on that. Seriously, this thing is much more powerful than you think. Pretty impressive, right? Yeah, PC gaming and Windows 11 all on a smartphone. And today, we are going to show you how exactly this works. Actually, it's not that hard to understand. As you may know, Microsoft does provide an ARM version of Windows, which you can find on Surface Pro X or other ARM-based PCs. Your smartphone, however, is also based on ARM processor. And since Qualcomm is making those processors for both your phones and PCs, some PC drivers can even be compatible with your phones. So running Windows on a smartphone isn't as hard as it sounds. The real problem comes down to the booting process, the UEFI. But how could you load UEFI and boot into Windows on an Android smartphone? Well, to solve the problem, let me introduce you Project Renegade. This is an open source project that helps you to run Windows or Linux natively on a smartphone. They came up with this idea of faking your Windows UEFI as a Linux kernel. So when booting from it, your phone will be like, yeah, it's a Linux kernel, so you must be running Android OS, right? No, I'm running Windows 11 instead. With the tools they provide, you can compile UEFI by yourself or just find one that works for your device. And that is the disguised Linux kernel that helps you to boot desktop OS from Android bootloader. And also, they gathered a lot of useful drivers and tuned them a bit to adapt to your smartphone, particularly Snapdragon 845 platform. So if you are using 845 chips, you can definitely check this out. I have linked the Project Renegade and a step-by-step tutorial in the description below. The installation process is like a mess. You will experience constant crashes, blue screen of death, and either of those happens, you may have to reset the phone or start from the very beginning. So after centuries of tinkering, tweaking, and praying to the father of Windows, here we are, the one and only Windows 11. Let's see, seems like the touchscreen works, but the UI is kind of terrible, so you definitely need a mouse and keyboard to set everything up. But anyway, this is the Windows 11 desktop on a smartphone. Look at the start menu, and you can even lock the screen and swipe up to unlock. Wow, that actually feels like a Windows Phone is still alive. Let's flip the screen and set the DPI. Well, it looks much more like a PC now. Take a look at the specs. We got 8 CPU cores from Snapdragon 845 chip, 8 gigs of RAM, and of course the GPU, Adreno 630. Looks like the GPU drivers is working just fine. So maybe we should run some benchmarks. We got a bit over 1,000 on Cinebench R23 multi-core and a stunning 250 on single-core. I bet you can't imagine how slow it is until it takes like 53 minutes to finish the whole test. Yeah, it's pretty painful to make this video for sure. But considering Cinebench is an x86 app and does not natively support ARM, it's really not that bad. After all, we are emulating desktop chips with an old smartphone processor, and the multi-core performance is still on par with an, let's say, 4th gen Intel mobile chip, which is still fine, I think. And for the GPU, we got about 2900 on the 3D Mark Knight Ray. That's about the same as a GT630 GPU. That's like 8 years ago, I guess. But anyway, I think we definitely had chance to run some modern games on it. And let's do it! The first question we are going to ask, you bet, can it run Crysis? I mean, the most power-hungry Crysis 3. Here we go! We got an AMD logo showing on a smartphone. How weird is that? technically it's not a lie since Adreno GPU originated from AMD technologies back in 2008. Okay, the menu looks very promising at a stable 60 FPS. Looks like we got a native 1080p res, and I will be super surprised if this even runs. Oh, wait a minute. Almost forgot about the thermals. Yeah, the phone is burning right now. I guess we should add an active cooler on that to make sure it doesn't explode. Alright, moment of truth. Did it really run Crysis? It works! Apparently we're not getting a lot of frame rates here and the game is a bit janky, but hey, it works! And that is amazing! Have you ever seen such graphics on a smartphone? Let's try to walk and shoot a bit. It's not really that playable, but still, I'm super satisfied with this. I mean, yeah, we are getting single-digit frame rate, but remember, this is 1080p resolution, desktop-level graphics. So if we can lower the resolution down, it might be actually playable, right? But the problem is we can't really switch res easily on the smartphone, neither from the desktop nor inside a game. So if you want to lower the res down, you need to be a little bit creative. Luckily, with the help of the window mode, you can change the resolution to anything you want. So what we can do here is setting the res down to 540p, let's say, with window mode, and then use the Windows magnifier to enlarge the window size so it looks like a full screen. What a genius idea, right? As expected, we got around 30 frames per second this time, and that is totally playable. Okay, forgot what I said. We can only get about 10-something frames per second when actually playing. The frame drops a lot in complicated things like this with trees and other stuffs, and I guess the problem right now is a CPU bottleneck. This might not be a great gaming experience, but hey, it's a 3-year-old smartphone, remember? And we are running the notorious Crysis 3, so I think this is more than enough. Can it run Crysis? Yes, it can. And now let's try some other games like CSGO. Since we have run Crysis with no issue, this should be a piece of cake. And guess what? It definitely runs better than Crysis. We're at a native 1080p and we got around 20 to 30 frames per second on average. That is pretty smooth. So why don't we just have some fun with it? Well, playing CSGO on a smartphone doesn't really make you more competitive, but that is definitely a unique experience and that is a lot of fun, I think. Maybe we should try something else. Something even crazier. Yes, this is Euro Truck Simulator 2. Since we have all the USB ports, connecting a steering wheel is not too much of a problem. Using a steering wheel to control a device that is even smaller than the steering wheel itself is quite interesting, let's say. Okay, games like Euro Truck Simulator are not really that power hungry, but seems like it performs worse than Crysis. That's a bit weird. Maybe we should take a look at the task manager and we can see the GPU usage is even lower than 30%, so we got the CPU bottleneck again. In fact, this happens in quite a lot of games. For example, in Skyrim, you almost never fully utilize your GPU under low res. At the first moment, you can get the frame rate about as high as 40 frames per second, but as you move the camera to a complicated thing, the frame rate drops massively. But luckily, some games we tried actually had a really good performance. This is Tomb Raider running on a smartphone. At 1080p, we got a solid 20 frames per second, no drops, no problems at all. This is a real AAA title and it's got really decent graphics, so it's a really impressive performance. And if we lower the res to 540p and zoom in, you know what? We can get a 30, 40 or even 50 frames per second. That is butter smooth. Seriously, when I played Tomb Raider on my old laptop back in 2013, the frame rate is not even higher than that. So should I say this is the flagship graphic quality of mobile gaming? It's just unbelievable. Oh right, this game even supports AMD's TressFX effects, which makes Lara Croft's hair a graphic card burner. Maybe we can try it a little bit on our smartphone, and wow, we got it! TressFX on Snapdragon GPUs. Seems like we didn't get any problems other than losing some frames, but hey, look at her hairs, the beautiful hairs. That worth trying, right? Looks like we tortured this smartphone a bit too hard, but hard is never enough, and I think we should try something even bigger. Maybe ray tracing? Well, it's not completely impossible though. Crytek, the developer of Crysis, has supported a special RT with their CE5 engine. Even your GPU does not have any RT cores or hardware accelerating, you can still run ray tracing. They have this demo called Neon Noir, which you can download for free, so let's try that on our smartphone. We are now in the menu and my cursor barely even moves. I have a better feeling about this. Wow, it's actually running. So I guess that ray tracing does work on Snapdragon 845, but the frame rate here is a bit... Well, we got a 0.2 FPS. That is 1 frame every 5 seconds. That feels like an eternity. Like gaming on Cinema 4D, if you know what I mean. Actually, we are not even using GPU at all. And after some works are done, we think it might be a problem related to Qualcomm's GPU drivers. Those tiny old GPUs just won't run 64-bit games at all. Instead, the games are running on a virtual GPU simulated by CPU. No wonder why the performance is so bad. The same thing happens in GTA 5. You can definitely enter the game, but got a frame rate lower than 1 frames per second. I mean, imagine playing GTA 5 on a smartphone. That is really something everyone's dreaming about, right? I wish we can really achieve that. But anyway, this is the end of today's video, and I think we have done enough with this smartphone. And if you like it, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. There will be some more interesting projects coming soon. I'm your host Fei from Jacob Wan, and thanks for watching. See you next time.